I get a phone call from my chief. And she's like, dude, are you sitting down? I'm like, why the fuck would I be sitting down? I'm in class. What's going on? She's like, I need you to sit down. I'm like, what happened?
This is
She said the White
your
House,
BMC calling you?
my BMC, yeah.
Okay.
She's like, the White House contacted Great Lakes and they want a representative from Glass to go to the official June Pride Month at the White House.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of Sea Stories. Sea Stories are tall tales generally told amongst fishermen and sailors. And what I like to do is I like to gather my old Navy buddies and tell our own sea stories. My name is Adam Herrera. I'm a former FC tech with the Navy for 10 years, and today I'm drinking from New Belgium, the triple. You're going to see a theme. You'll see why in a second. Andy, how are you doing, and what do you got for us?
I'm doing good, Adam. It's always great as the summer sets in sunny Virginia and it gets ridiculously hot and humid, as most of us recall Norfolk. And I'm drinking from New Belgium the Summer Bliss. Not that my filter shows a can, but it is tasty. How are you doing, Drew?
I'm good, man. Thank you for asking. Hanging in there. I live in sunny Florida, otherwise known as the 10th layer of hell right now. So I'm drinking something a little juicy from New Belgium. I got the Juice Force. So I'll see you later. Joe, how you doing?
Thank you, Drew. I am doing fantastic, living the good life here in the hottest place in the Midwest. I'm from Kansas. I am drinking the 1985 New Belgium IPA, and looking forward to reviewing some of these New Belgiums we're done here. And I would like to take this time to introduce the master of disaster, Mr. Josh.
Good to be here, guys. Thanks, Joe. I was so excited to find out our guest brews beer at New Belgium, because New Belgium was the one that got me into craft beers. I was drinking 1554, which is really what I was looking for, but I could not find it. So today I took the New Belgium Voodoo Ranger. It's always a good classic too. I just love the art. It's always a cool art. Anyways, I actually get to introduce our guest this time, and her name is Ann, and she's a co-founder of Glass, and I'm pretty sure she will tell us what Glass means, and we'll have other awesome conversations with her. So I am done.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for the intro. I love that the fact that you guys all got New Belgium beers, and I'm particularly exclusively not drinking a New Belgium beer because I am not at work. And if I don't have to drink the beer that I make, I won't.
Understandable.
I was like your show, especially the Juice Force. That's such a bitch to make. Just like it, just every time I see it, I just get mad. Like I hope you enjoy it, but I just I just can't do it, man. Like it's such a bitch. But I am actually representing from Fort Collins, Colorado, Odell Brewing Company's drumroll hazy pale ale, which is awesome. Like it's one of my favorite crushable because it is about 90 degrees out. And here at altitude means there's no moisture in the air. So I've just been obsessively applying lotion and chapstick so I don't turn into a raisin.
Thanks everybody for joining today, especially Ann. Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Yeah.
So, like Josh said earlier, we have a special guest, Ann. And I'm just gonna let you introduce yourself. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm super stoked to be here. Like the Average Joe podcast, I've been having a great time going through all your back episodes and having everything. Like you guys are doing great. I am a former FC, like everyone here. I'm still a naval reservist, but I had a cross rate once I went reserves. So I was a CWIS tech for about 6 years, and then been in reserves for about 5 as a yeoman. So, but the reason I think being here today is, especially in lieu of Pride Month, is I had the distinct honor and privilege of founding the first gay straight alliance in the U.S. military. So that organization, GLASS, has been around for 10-year anniversary this year. So it's been a big part of my life and long-term project. So it's been a lot of fun.
I first heard of you when I listened to your interview on the Permission to Speak Freely podcast with those guys. How were those guys, by the way? I'm a huge fan of those guys.
Oh, the senior chiefs. They're two active duty senior chiefs, and they do this weekly podcast. Damon and Damo, who and I honestly I don't remember their last names just because they're like the Damon and Damo. But they're active duty engineering types, and they do kind of more in depth, current event stuff with the Navy leadership stuff. But yeah, I was actually in Italy this last February for AT, because I'm attached to Naval Forces Europe and East Africa. So if I don't go to East Africa, I chill in Italy for my ATs. And because Russia decided to start acting the fool, I got pulled from East Africa. Instead of doing an exercise, went up to Italy. And while I was there, a sailor reached out via Facebook about starting a GLASS chapter at her command. And every time I get a chapter that wants to start, hey, where are you guys at? How'd you hear about the program? And she had heard about it from other sailors, and it had also been mentioned on that podcast. So I was like, oh, that's super cool. Listen to the episode. And I reached out to them to say hey, if you want, I'd be happy to talk to you about the program. And that's how that episode ended up coming into existence.
It was a really solid interview. You did such a great job, and I heard your stories, and I became an instant fan of yours. And then once you said that you worked at a brewery and you're a former FC, I was like, oh, I hope she's willing to come on our show, talk to a bunch of FCs, a bunch of beer drinking FCs actually. I want to get into your how you came about with GLASS, but I want to start at the very beginning, if you don't mind. And I just want to get into basically how you got into the Navy. Can you just tell us about where you came from and what led you into joining the Navy?
Yeah, for sure. I was born long ago. No, I was born in Nevada, and for my adult life, up until the point where I joined the Navy, because I joined at 24, I was a newspaper photographer. So I was a journalist. I was California, Colorado, Pennsylvania. I was working for Associated Press and the daily newspapers out there. And my sister was joining the Navy, and she basically was living with me, and she depped. And I was like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. And I always wanted to be a combat photographer. And so right when the economy crashed, in newspapers, the first thing that got axed was basically the art department, photography, design, what have you. So I found myself unemployed and quickly homeless. And I was like, all right, well, sign me up for the Navy. I've already gone through this whole process with my sister and did it that way. This was in 2010. So this was right at the end of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the policy where you could be gay, but you couldn't tell anyone about it. You couldn't ask anyone if they were gay. And if you were caught, you'd be kicked out.
That's what I was curious about when they made that change, because I think all of us served underneath the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. So
yeah, it was around for about, I want to say 20 years. And it's funny, if you watch a movie like G.I. Jane, that's a policy that was when that movie was made, and that was a big deal. Demi Moore's character tries to get kicked out because she was a lesbian, quote unquote. No, but since I was working at the newspaper, and we had done stories about service members who'd been kicked out because of the policy, and it was right when Obama was talking about repealing it, and there was all these think tanks and whatever, would this work? And so I assumed that it was already going to be repealed at some point. So when I went in, even though I was the last generation of sailor to enlist under the policy, I didn't think that it would be my entire career kind of a thing. So I enlisted in October. I was in boot camp in December, and Obama signed the repeal end of December 2010. but there was a 9 or 10 month intermission, like interim period where like it wasn't enacted yet. So the first year that I was actually in the Navy was still technically under the policy. So that was kind of my entry into the Navy, was with, like, I mean, I have I said it in the other podcast, I have the actual instruction that I had to initial where like, I will not commit homosexual acts, whatever. I still have that on my refrigerator because, and I'll bring it out every now and then to show people because they just don't believe that I had to sign the shit that like, if you're caught, if basically you can't act on it, you can't, try and do shit with other people if they find out that you are like, it's basically all the stuff you had to initial while you were signing all your like enlistment contract. So I found a copy of it. And I'm like, that's gonna go in my refrigerator. So that was yeah, which was so crazy because like, I mean, I don't know if like if you're gonna be doing the video recording of this, but like I have short hair, I have tattoos. Never was one to like be a particularly feminine woman ever. Like I present masculine of center. And so like when I joined, my mom was like, how the fuck is that gonna work? Like, and again, hopefully you don't mind my French, we're all sailors here, but
Yeah, we're all sailors.
yeah, so it was kind of like, she was just like, what in the fuck are you thinking? Like, you've been out forever, you're unabashedly gay, and now all of a sudden you want to join the Navy. And I was like, well, I don't have a whole lot of options at this point. So I'd wanted to go in as an MC. They didn't have any female seats available. So they're like, well, what about AECF, which is, Advanced Electronics Computer Field. And then after boot camp, I got bequeathed into FC, thank God, because God knows I would not want to be an ET.
How fancy does Advanced Electronics Computer Field sound?
Yeah,
There was a salesman that had to come up with that one, man. That was just...
They really hooked us in with that.
Yes, I was suckered in. I'll admit to that. I would
I mean, I'm glad I was.
On that note, how did they make the leap from MC to AECF? Like
It was just, I think it was just like based on what was available in my ASVAB scores. Because
yeah.
I've always been a really good test taker. So they're like, you want to do whatever? I'm like, sure. I just don't want to be a corpsman because both my parents are ER nurses. And I'm like, I don't want that evil on me. Mass communications. So like, because I was already a photographer in the civilian world. So I wanted to do
like, have one of those on
they used to be like photographer's mate. Like they combined like the reporter and photographer's mate into mass communications.
Keep in mind that I got out in 2007.
Joe, yeah. Joe, rapper is not a Navy rate, all right?
Oh yeah, I was the sucker MC.
Sucker FC.
No, okay,
MC.
yeah. So, all right, yeah. So that makes sense. And then
Question for us. Sorry, Joe, but do we have to sign that form too? Like, I don't remember. We did.
Everybody did. That was like the day that exactly, like it was the day at MEPS where like you had to sign like, I promise to abide by the UCMJ, and there's like no here. Let me grab it for a second. It's funny as fuck when you look at it.
Yeah, I don't remember like signing that or even maybe just paying attention to it.
You're just signing stack of papers, Drew.
I was.
It's 18 years old.
Yeah, like,
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like if you're gonna be separated for like, if you have like a pattern of like disciplinary infractions, you can be separated. Failure to meet service weight control standards. So it's like all these little bullet points for all the reasons that you can get separated. And then it just kind of like in there is like a member may be separated for violations of laws or regulations regarding sexual conduct of members of the armed forces, for example, engaging or attempting to engage in a homosexual act or soliciting another to engage in such an act, for stating that he or she is a homosexual or bisexual or words to that effect, or for marrying or attempting to marry an individual of the same sex. So like there's a couple other ones like like the member has engaged in, attempted to engage in, or solicited another to engage in homosexual acts, unless there are further findings made and approved in accordance with procedures set forth in such regulations that they had. So basically it's like, if it is like a one-off, like such conduct is a departure from the member's usual or customary behavior. So it's like not gay if it's underway. Such conduct under all circumstances is unlikely to reoccur, or such conduct was not accomplished by force, coercion, or intimidation. And so basically it's like it's outlining all the ways that like if you do get caught doing gay shit, that you wouldn't get kicked out for doing gay shit.
I know we're looking at it through the lens of 2022, but isn't it like a little ridiculous that the Navy had like a policy where it's like, hey, we don't want you coming into the Navy and just grabbing dicks all day. Like, doesn't that fall under sexual harassment anyways?
I guess to me it's weird
Yeah.
that like that they have to like outline it like that, like as if anyone's going to be okay with that anyway. Like, no, you can't go around. Yeah, like you said, grabbing dicks. Like, yeah, I guess. But
Well, it's also too like you couldn't even like allude to it. Like, and also like
Yeah.
if you're like a bisexual person, like you could be a bisexual person in a heterosexual relationship and still get your ass kicked out. So like, you know what I'm saying? So like you could be like married with kids in a quote unquote like heterosexual relationship and still be bisexual and still kicked out under this policy. Now, this isn't even getting into like trans service members, which was a whole nother part of the story later on, because they just weren't recognized at all. And like when we were starting this group, like one of the biggest things, like people are like, well, it's not as inclusive, it's just gays and lesbians. I'm like, we legitimately were not allowed to use the word transgender at all in any capacity. Like we had this one Pride Month, no shit. We had LGBT for like June Pride Month on a cake. And my captain made us cut the T off of the cake.
Really?
No shit. Yeah.
When was
like,
that?
we're
Like
talking,
what year?
this was
Roughly.
14 or 15.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I mean, like this whole story, and it's like unless like of course like you're gay in the military, you wouldn't necessarily know because it didn't affect everyone the same way.
Right.
Like if you're a straight sailor who didn't know any other gay sailors, like you would not have known about like DOMA or the repeal or like equal opportunity. Like you just wouldn't have any idea of just how completely fucked it was to be gay even after the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because you wouldn't get kicked out, but like your marriages weren't, you know, seen as the same. So like you could be married and have kids and not get any BAH. Like you wouldn't be able to co-locate with your family. Like this whole thing where it's like, cool, like you could not get kicked. Like there was no protection under equal opportunity. So like there was no one to report harassment to. Like it for I mean, even nowadays, like even with like trans sailors, like all these new laws that are coming out, you're just like, shit, dude, like you're still kind of in a really weird position depending on how cool your command is.
Yeah.
And
So
then
it's
I'm also, you know,
But-
and it sucks that, you know, I'm still looking at this as through the 2022 lens, you know,
Mhm.
I'm from California, I'm pretty progressive, but like the thought of like some officer, you know, he catches somebody at a bar, like a dude kissing a dude or a girl kissing another girl, and then something
Mhm.
compels them to like run that up the chain to get this,
Oh, yeah.
this discharge. I mean, that seems ridiculous to me as well. Like,
dude, no shit. In World War II, they had undercover like JAGs infiltrating quote unquote like homosexual sex rings of Navy sailors to get evidence on them to kick them out. But they were having to do like all the shit that like they basically be hooking up with guys, even though they were quote unquote undercover, to get firsthand proof that these people were gay and then using that as testimony to get them kicked out during World War II. Like that happened all the time. Like you're like, cool, so you guys are still getting a blowjob, but then you're gonna make that dude go to prison.
So it's
That's
kind of like
super
that
neat.
South Park episode.
exactly what I was about to say.
Exactly. But it was
I've
like
got a whole bag of
that's the-
evidence. Get out of here. It's so ridiculous.
It's wild.
I was only in these bathhouses. All right, calm down, buddy.
Not to make light of anything, but
Was
you
it
know.
something that was dressed as a command-wide thing, or was it just more addressed to individual sailors, or addressed with individual sailors?
Like when I was in, it was individual sailors, but like I have like my Navy mentor, she's like my Navy mom. She just retired after like 33 years. So she was a bosun mate chief 33 years in. She's gay as the day is long, truly. But she joined in the 80s. So she joined before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, during the entirety of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and then like 10 years after Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So like she like, dude, I'm like, I cannot believe you stayed that long and having to do this shit for 30 years. Like unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, so like it was more of like it was more of like you had to watch your back kind of a thing. Like the first female Master Chief of a carrier, like the first CMC of a carrier, Kathy Hansen. She was a HT. She was a 12-year Master Chief, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then she was in
HT.
as an HT, and she was in for 30 years. And she, again, gay as the day is long. And like when she first got the CMC command, I think it was on the Reagan. I think it might have been the Reagan. She got called into Triad's office with the captain and XO, and they're like, basically like, we know you're gay. Keep that shit under lock because we don't want you to basically to bring discredit upon this ship. And she's like, I'm the first female Master Chief of a carrier. Yeah. And it just completely ruined the entire experience because she knew that like they knew. And that she also had to be like super like she had to be sneaky about it, which sucks. So
can we talk about don't ask, don't tell for a second, and about how crazy that idea and you guys know on the ship, you knew who was gay. They knew you knew, and we knew they knew that we knew. Yeah, everybody didn't say anything. Like, what a weird fucking environment that was.
Mostly because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, because
I guess
by and large,
like
everybody was good.
There were everybody. I mean, it was like but also keep in mind too that this was 2004, 5, whatever. Like at that point in time, I feel that the wheels of acceptance, I guess maybe, were in motion. Or I got out in 07. Adam, you got out in what, 10, 12? So I mean, Drew 06, Josh 06, Andy 07. 4 years later, it was, the whole thing was repealed. I mean, like obviously everybody was, not everybody, I take that back. The majority of people probably at that point in time, I mean, especially younger folks that, the wheels of progress and acceptance were already in motion, so I mean, it's, back in the 80s, where like, I have two neighbors that they're gay dudes, Bruce and Jim. I go to their parties and stuff, summer jamboree or whatever over at their place, and I'm like, they're like, oh, we've been together like 30 years, 35 years. I'm like, holy shit! Like, I could not imagine. Like, that's the 80s was out of control. I mean, the 2000s. Yeah, I mean, it was. I guess I can't really. I don't want to try to downplay it, but it wasn't near as bad as 88, 92.
Well, and you also and you factor in the AIDS epidemic. I mean, a homosexual man still can't. I mean, a homosexual man still can't donate blood, even though they're not the highest. Like, their demographic of gay men is no longer the highest demographic of people with HIV. But God knows they're the ones who know what their status is with HIV. Right. People just don't get tested for it. So, I mean, even allowing. I mean, I get HIV draws every year. Like, they have to test us for HIV. That was a huge concern, which is understandable. We lost 30 million people worldwide, something like that.
They give us those every year, right? In the Navy,
I do them every year, every 6 months or something.
Okay, yeah, because I remember always being like free AIDS test, and that was exactly. Kind of like everybody said it. I mean, I wasn't original with my joke.
Which is understandable, but now they changed it to where if you do have HIV, because especially if you're on the medications they have now, basically it's not transmissible or it's undetectable. Right. So now people with HIV can now serve on ships. But again, look back at the late 80s and 90s, it was not a fun time to be a gay person in this country. So you have, and also the military in general is a little bit more butch than the civilian world. You could argue. Same thing with we're very much into our customs and traditions, and it's so hard, especially for Navy, to let go of the way that we do shit, just because it's wrong and it's proven that it's wrong, and it's still very hard to let go of that. Oh no, we can't have any gays. It's gonna cause issues. It's really first of all, they're already here. Second of all, the denying Americans who want to serve their country when they're fit and qualified to do so is just asinine. Right. You know what I mean?
That. You have to think that you have 6,000 people on a carrier, and not one person likes or loves the person of the same sex. It's 6,000 people. I mean, just strict numbers game alone.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Well, I
losing
mean-
that every time.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at the same argument being made about women being on a ship, like, oh, they're going to be a distraction. It's like they're also doing the job, and also like, I don't know, like I get I get really weird about people like, well, this one group of demographic of people are going to be a distraction and fuck with morale. I'm like, I'm in a position to be turning anyone away right now, like.
Yeah.
Also, be a professional. How about that?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
There
I'm
are
like,
lots
Do
of
that,
work.
no? You can't do that in the Navy. Be professional.
And
I got to
I
be
know-
on 365 days a year, seven days a week. No, sir.
I know, Anne, that you had
Yes.
mentioned you had made a comment about how cool or how maybe more liberal the command was. Did you get to experience things on either coast, or was certain commands more liberal than others, or were those rules just strictly zero tolerance followed, or did you find
Well-
that some commands kind of were cool and as long as you did your job?
So with my so I get out of boot camp. It's 2011, or it's like February 2011, and again, I still have a year of this policy, right? But I'm in, as you all know, FC ATT and FCA school are at Great Lakes. So, and then at the time, all of our C schools were backed up, so we had FCs on hold for like 6 months before they were even able to go out to C school. So like my class, like my group of guys who I basically went from boot camp to C school with, I was basically my first 2 straight years were with this one group of people. And so we had finished A school and we were just on hold. And it was actually during this time I met my wife, and who was a civilian, and we met down in Chicago. But I remember we were on hold, so we're like trying to fucking figure out shit to do. So because I don't like being unproductive, it's a personality flaw. But I joined the Sapper team, and they allowed us to become Sapper VA. So I was on the Sapper team for that. And then, do you
Can
guys
you,
remember
uh,
CSAD?
Can you explain Sapper for like Joe and the
So,
civilians then?
Oh, yeah. So Sapper is basically a sexual assault awareness and prevention. So if you're a Sapper victim advocate, you are basically the person on call at a command who acts as a victim's advocate in the event that someone is sexually assaulted. So all those numbers that you see of like, if you are sexually assaulted, call this number. They put you in touch with the on-duty Sapper VA, the victim advocate. And then you're the one who helps walk them through the process of like getting medical care, getting therapy. If they decide they want to do a report, you're the one who helps walk them through that process. And then you report up to the SARC, which is like the regional sexual assault coordinator, who then reports up to Don Sapro, which is like the Department of the Navy Sapper head in DC. So normally they don't want you to be super low ranking, because like as like a seaman or an E3 or E4, just because like you haven't been in a whole long time. But like they were also kind of desperate because it was Great Lakes and people were acting like a bunch of idiots. So I was able to do that. And then I was also a part of CSAD. I don't know if you guys remember that program, but it was like this coalition of sailors against destructive decisions. It was a mandated like peer mentorship group for the Navy that the Navy kind of made everyone do.
You remember that?
And it was basically like trying to like give people the opportunity to just not go out and get tanked and make bad decisions. So we would put on like, like for Halloween, we did like a zombie 5K where everyone dressed up as zombies and ran out of the runners. And we would do like all these events. So like that was what I did to kill time. So because I was in a position where when I was on hold, I was working in the main building where like the skipper of TSC Great Lakes was, I was able to meet the Captain Peter Littner, who was total badass. He'd gone from an E1 to chief to an 06. So like he had done fucking every rank. He was like probably the best captain I ever had. And he was really cool, and he really cared a lot about his sailors. So during this time, the repeal happened, officially got enacted in November 2011. And we're like, okay, cool. So now what do we do? And I have a friend of mine who at the time identified as a lesbian, but has since come out as a trans man. And he has a wife and 2 kids, but again, they couldn't get legally married. He couldn't have the same benefits as everyone else. And he was trying to support them on an E3 salary with no BAH. which is, I mean, if any civilian listening, you don't make a whole lot of money as an E3 unless you're married, which is why like
$25,000 a year.
marriage. Oh my God, like it's rough.
I think I saw the other day that like an enlisted person makes like 20, like a brand new, like straight out of the gates is like 23,000 a year or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then
Yeah, and
as an E3, I mean, you're only making like as you're jumping from E1 to E2 to E3, it's not like hundreds of dollars. It's like $75, $150. Like, okay.
Well, and also like you're not allowed to live out in town. Like when we were at TSC, you couldn't have your own car. Like there were all these things because
a lot of people don't understand that about the military, about the Navy life. They're like, oh, well, you get, free out, like, no. You have to spend, you either be married, spend so much time in. But until then, you're making like $900 every 2 weeks.
Yeah, like you are meant to stay on base. Exactly. So, I mean, and that sucks. So my buddy who had been with his wife and they had two, I mean, at that point, they were like 4 or 5. One just graduated this year. I'm like, I can't believe, time is linear.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so stressed out because they were always just fucking arguing about money. Like they were always so stressed. He was always like, I can't provide for my family. I just want to make sure they're okay. And I remember one night at TSC, they had that Sam Adams beer pub, whatever, that was right by the water. They had like this like brew pub on base. And we had all gone out drinking there. Like it was, I don't know if it was still there when you guys were there. But like we were basically hammered. We hammered on tequila. I really should send a thank you letter to Jose Cuervo. We go back to the barracks and he had just got off the phone with his wife. And he was just so upset and I was so drunk and we're sitting in the barracks room. We're all in the same barracks. And I was just like, dude, like there has to be some elder gay who's figured this out. There has to be someone who has been in, who knows the fucking red tape, how to get someone who you're not married to and not related to as your dependent. Like there has to be someone who's figured this shit out. Dawn House Intel has been going on for fucking 20 years. And I was like, it would just be so much easier if we had like a group that we could all just go to and share resources. And then it was like dead silent. And it was like the hair on my arm stood up. And I'm like, that'd be a great idea. We should just start a gay group. And we just happened to know all the gay people. And so we're like, everyone was really excited about the idea. And because I was working in the Sapper, one of our Sapper VAs was a BMC who's my mentor and super gay. Like she's so gay. She looks and she's super butch, like short hair, like, rough and tumble, fucking
looks like a BM.
Lover.
Yeah.
Oh,
All you had to say is BMC.
Yeah.
BMC. Yeah. That's all you need. That's all you need to know. But we basically asked her to be our mentor. And at that time, I didn't realize that she was still like, she'd been in the closet for 20 years. So like, here's these junior sailors asking, can you please help us? And she was like, fuck yeah, like I'm here for it. So we set up a meeting with the skipper of TSC, who again was this E1 to 06 dude. Super great guy. We go in there and we had basically been working with the legal department to basically draft like charter, bylaws, instruction, because this thing had never existed before. So how do you write a Navy instruction for a group that has never existed? Well, we went out to like PFLAG and all these civilian gay straight alliances because we wanted it to be a gay straight alliance. We didn't want it to just be just for the gays. We wanted to make sure it was open for everybody. And we basically meshed these civilian charters with Navy instruction. So we go in there, we walk into his office, there's a group of us, and he was just like, I'm just so mad that like it had to be you guys doing this and that my guys or I didn't figure to do this before. Like that was his only thing. He's like, I just wish it didn't have to fall on a bunch of E3s and E4s to come up with this. But he was so all about it. He was so excited. And he immediately signed the charter. And of course, as soon as he signed it, everyone started freaking the fuck out about it because the repeal just happened. It was still a really big news story. And now all of a sudden they have a gay straight alliance that's officially chartered on a base. So if it's officially chartered, it's allowed to happen on base. It's command sponsored, as opposed to like, anything else that's off base. Like all the other veterans, gay groups were not allowed to operate on base. This was an officially sanctioned command group, like a first class association or whatever. So news got out and all of a sudden like the media blows up, like Chicago Tribune, New York Times, AP, Navy Times, like all this shit. And, we have all these interviews. We have all these, events with like veterans. Like we had this like World War II veteran who was super gay, came out and spoke with us. And eventually I get sent to San Diego for Sea School for CWIS. And it was like, no, granted, this group has only been in existence since February of 2012. By May, I was in San Diego. I get a phone call from my chief. And she's like, dude, are you sitting down? I'm like, why the fuck would I be sitting down? I'm in class. What's going on? She's like, I need you to sit down. I'm like, what happened? She said the White House.
BMC calling you?
My BMC, yeah.
Okay.
She's like, the White House contacted Great Lakes and they want a representative from Glass to go to the official June Pride Month at the White House as like an official military representative of gay people, basically. And so I sit down, I'm like, what are you saying? What are you telling me? Like, what does this mean? She's like, the White House wants you to go to the White House in uniform and be the first official Navy representative of gay sailors during the official June Pride Month event. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, this organization's been around for 4 months. I have been in the Navy a year and a half, not even a year and change. And I'm an E5, I'm a push button. Or not an E5, I'm an E4. I was a push button in school. Haven't even gotten to my ship yet. And she's like, you get a +1. And, obviously I was dating my wife. And I'm like, dude, Chief, I need you to come with me. And she's like, I think this is for Jen to come with you. I'm like, no. You're like, you put yourself out there to help us. Like, you've been in the Navy for 20 years. I need you to come with me. Like, I need you to be there. And so she went from being in the closet for 20 years in the Navy to being in dress whites at the White House within, again, 6 months. So like, it was such a huge, so you ask about like, were people liberal or cool? It's like, it wasn't liberal or conservative. It was command leadership actually giving a shit and allowing people with a good idea to go with it and support them when we got pushback. Like, that's how that first chapter started. So
can we pause for a sec?
Yeah.
I got a bunch of thoughts.
I've been writing down some thoughts too that I want to hit up at the. I think that my questions are more after the. You're probably going to edit most of this out, I'm assuming, but I've got questions that I want to ask pre White House visit that have nothing to do with sexuality whatsoever.
Okay.
Just other things that, I just don't want to be left out of this because I've got really serious questions.
Yeah, for sure.
First,
and again, feel free to ask whatever. Like, this is a teaching moment. Like, don't feel like you're gonna insult. Like, just feel free to ask whatever.
Oh, no. Most of my stuff is naval related versus versus the class conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, elder gay is fucking hilarious.
Oh, dude, I should have wrote that down because I feel like I should get to say that sometimes, but I don't.
You see how much gray hair I have? I am now an elder gay. Like, you see this shit? You see how much fucking gray I have? I was full brunette.
The thing is, I'm kind of nervous about using the word elder gay because it's almost on the same line of like, well, I have a black friend. And so I don't want to be that guy, and it'll be like, well, the elder gay told me, and then another gay guy's like, I don't know who.
If you were to tell someone that an elder gay said something, go for it. That'd be funny as fuck.
Like, all right.
You gotta pass.
I cannot wait to see my neighbors.
Yeah, and if they're like, what the fuck? You say that's how she identifies.
What was really funny? I actually went on kind of a weird bar tour around the bars of my house, and my gay neighbors tie into this. And I went to the little shithole bar down the street that I know that they go to on Saturdays, and there's like 12 people that go to this bar, like all like on the street I live on basically. And I saw them in there, and they always like try to like see how far they can push like my buttons or whatever. Like they'll say like shit that's like uncomfortable, but then I just like kind of like play along with it. And on Saturday, last Saturday, in fact, and please, Adam, edit this out because I'm going to say something that's very offensive. They had said something. The they're Bruce and Jim. Bruce is the more outspoken of the two, and he was like, "Oh, what? Did you and Andy? Andy's my roommate. He's like, did you just tell your friends that you live next door to a couple of?" And I said, "Bruce, I would never talk like that. We don't talk like that in this house. I tell my friends that I live next door to a couple of old queens." And and I'm not gonna lie, I think that like they might have thought that was the funniest shit they'd ever heard in their whole life. Like I was really happy at like how like, quick I was with like a gay joke, but definitely playing the gay card like right back in their face. Like it was like tennis almost.
Oh, yeah.
And Jim, the one he never talks. He's quiet and kind of standoffish. He about fell out of that varsity. We were all hammered at this time anyway, so it really didn't matter. But yeah, it was. I was really proud of myself. I've been waiting to tell this story to somebody else. Because I can't tell it at work because everyone's like, I don't know Bruce and Jim. I don't know you and your roommate. You're an idiot anyway, Joe. You suck. But this is a perfect opportunity for me to tell that joke. And life, yeah, it was awesome. Just, I'm really proud of myself so quick.
Sound like it.
Yeah, you did a great job. And I think it goes
off.
a long way knowing jokes about gay people, especially two gay people, go a long way when you know there's no ill intent behind them. So like, go figure. And so the fact that they trust you and have that relationship with you, I think speaks a lot to you and your relationship with them as like a person. So like, good on you. Yeah, that was good shit.
Can I just finish off my thoughts really quick?
Yeah.
I just want to like shout out to your BMC and your skipper for like fucking being humans, because that's pretty dope, and like assisting you.
Oh yeah.
And then like I want the rest of you guys to put yourselves go back to A school. Like you guys were checking out Xboxes at the Liberty Center while Ann was doing like some fucking crazy ass shit. Like, can you believe that?
I mean, to be fair though, like for me, I didn't realize what a big deal it was, because it just didn't make any sense that it would be a big deal. And then seeing everyone's reaction to when we actually got it done. So like, I didn't go into it thinking I was going to be this like flag waving, SJW, Vanguard bullshit. I had no idea. I was just like, this is fucked up. Why don't we have this?
Yeah, you were just like trying to solve a local problem with the y'all's local, and it just
What was your
happened that
realistic expectation? Sorry, Josh.
it fit the whole Navy. It was just it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of things happen that way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
What was your realistic expectation when you first thought of this? Like when you sobered up and then you reflected back?
I mean, I think that my initial, I had no, if you had told me 10 years ago in that barracks room that like, not even the Washington bit, but like the fact that we're on every carrier, we're on 5 different countries, it's military wide, it's, all these things, like I would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Like I had no idea how important this would be for the people it was important to. But honestly, I was just like, dude, my buddy Duncan just needs to figure out how to get his family on his record.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
That's all it was. Like that was the whole thing. And then
simple as that. Yeah.
Simple as that. And then once everyone really started, especially people who had been in for a while, because again, all of my friends and I, we'd only been in the Navy for less than a year. So it was like, all right, well, it seems to be really important for a lot of people. And again, like I had just started dating my wife. There was a couple times when like Jen forgot their fucking driver's license when they came to sign me out. And then I got pulled in like, who is Jennifer Geiman? And I was like, fuck, oh no. Because I can't be like, this is smoking hot, person I'm banging. No, I couldn't say that shit. It could be, oh, this is the person I'm dating, So I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? So, think of like a relationship where you're young, you're in love, everything is fantastic, and you just you can't say anything about it. And like, I remember there was a 4th of July before the repeal happened. And at Great Lakes, they do this big like 4th of July thing where, I don't know if you guys were there in July, where it's like the fireworks and you got vendors and it's like open to the public. And like, I remember just sitting there and we're sitting next to each other and Jen kept on scooting close to me and I had to keep scooting close, like farther away because we couldn't be like cuddling. And I looked over at like all these other sailors and they've got their kids and their families and their girlfriends. And I just thought, like, how fucking unfair, because here I was, we were all doing the exact same fucking job. We were, we signed the exact same shit. And here Jen was driving an hour and a half each way to hang out with me and couldn't even hold my hand. Like, so I mean, I just was so indignant because, again, like, when I came out of the closet, I was never in a closet. Like, I was never raised that being gay was a bad thing, and I never felt like I needed to hide who I was. So when I came out at 18, I had been incredibly out and open about who I was in my orientation since I joined at 24. So 7 years of just doing whatever the fuck I wanted and not having anyone in my life say it was a bad thing. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting in this environment that's very rigid and structured. And now I'm with someone who I deeply care about. And I can't show that. I can't reciprocate that. So that was fucked. I mean, like, that was such a weird place to be, and it just made me angry. And so the more angry I got and resentful, the more time we started putting into the chapter in the group, and the more people got excited about it, and it kind of just gave me fuel to just want to, like, do more with it and do more with it and do more with it until it became what it became. So it was a really
about the whole situation, about you being in the military and her being civilian, and her not being obviously under some regulations.
It was hard because, like, Jen was 19 when we met, and I recognized that almost makes me a cradle robber, but not quite. But also Jen came out when they were like 13. And again, had never had to really be, I mean, like, a ton of people on Jen's side are super queer, like gay cousins, trans cousins, like, the whole spectrum of people on their side. And I was just like, so also having to put Jen in a closet, who had never had to be in a closet before, was also really unfair, especially for a new relationship. And I mean, Jen and I have been together for almost 12 years. And, doing that at the beginning of your relationship, and then having to do distance, because Jen was getting their undergrad in Chicago. I got stationed in San Diego, and Jen just got their PhD. So Jen's been in Colorado this whole fucking time for grad school while I was in San Diego. So, I mean, having to deal with all the same shit, having to deal with deployment, having to deal with all the normal things that military spouses have to deal with. And then on top of that, being in a closet at the beginning, distance, and then having to go through all these other policies like DOMA, equal opportunity, all that other nonsense. Jen had to go through it with me and didn't necessarily have the support that other straight people would have had. So yeah, I mean, it sucked. Like, there's no ways about it. It fucking sucked. But Jen was also enough of a person to be like, this is fucked up. I support you, honey. Do what you gotta do. Like, to fuck with the system, well, just do it. Just about I'm right behind you. Like, whatever you want to do, then
you hooked there.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I mean, that was, and I think, like, that was, this group has gone beyond any expectation I could have ever had for it. In part because I don't run it anymore. It's run by the people who want to do these groups. Like, I don't go up to a command and be like, hello, would you like, I'm not like Avon ladying this chapter to people, like, can I interest you in a nice pastel assortment of gay groups? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing that shit. But, the fact that it's self-sufficient, the fact that it keeps growing and there's still interest, and there's still, obviously, if you read the news nowadays, there's still plenty of reasons why we need to have groups like this. Like, yeah.
I have two more thoughts now. First of all, like, for speaking to you for 20 minutes or whatever, and if I had to guess your rate, I would assume FC, because you're witty and clever. And number two, I just want to shout you out because, like, for taking your BMC to the White House, like, after 20 years of being in the closet or whatever, like, I bet, man, that gave me goosebumps, and I hope that was a special moment for her.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she retired this year, and I flew out to Norfolk to be there. Like, I was one of her fucking flag
Side boys.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of side boys. And yeah, and even like in her speech at the end, like, she's 33-year BMC, and she still talked about it, how that was such a pivotal moment, not only in her career, because she's also from Georgia. Like, she's from the South, like the South. And she, that how I didn't, and again, like I had no idea how big of an impact it was for her to be able to do that. And then of course, like she gets on her carrier and she starts their chapter there, and she, protects them from the bullshit that was happening on that ship, and just doing all that, other kitty. This cat's trying to eat my plant. Get out of there. All right, thank you.
Joe, I turn over the rest of the questions to you.
Okay. All right. So the stuff that I have jotted down here, I'm going to try to keep the conversation going the direction that we've already been going. So we've got you started this organization, and then you get called to go to the first Pride celebration at the White House as the founder of GLASS. Again, GLASS stands for.
Oh yeah, so GLASS originally, the acronym, because we love acronyms, is Gay, Lesbian, and Supporting Sailors.
There you go.
And then it went to multiple branches. Now it's Gay, Lesbian, and Supportive Service Members. And it's funny because now people are like, that's not an inclusive name, we should change it. And everyone's like, are you going to be mad that they're changing the name? I'm like, I give two fucks. No, change whatever name, make it Glisten, make it Prism, make it whatever. Like, I don't care. Would you like a charter and bylaws? Like, so it's the name changes, the mission and the framework remains the same. And honestly, like depending on the command, I'm like the way that it's written, that it's very easy, it's very malleable. You're able to change it to fit what your command wants and what your sailors need. But at the end of the day, it is a resource place, it is a place for community and outreach and education. Like that's the main purpose of the group. So yeah, so GLASS as a name can be different names depending on the command, but it's the same. Yeah.
The GLASS that you originally were involved in, that you started, that you were a founding member of, Elder Day, that's everywhere now.
That's what?
That's everywhere now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, you broke up a little bit.
It's across all branches. Is he asking?
It's across all branches. Yeah.
Okay, so that is splintered off to every single branch. That particular thing, the thing you have started is everywhere. We've got it's all services. Yeah, it's all service branches. It's at every Navy hospital. It's on every carrier. We've got a bunch of chapters in Japan, Bahrain, Gitmo. I always laugh my ass off when we got Bahrain. I'm like, homosexuality is illegal in this part of the world, and we have a fucking GLASS chapter. Fantastic. Like that was just like beautiful. But yeah, I mean, like almost every base has at least. And the thing is, like, the chapters are only as active as the people who want to participate. So like sometimes people will start a chapter and then like the gung-ho person transfers and then the chapter kind of fizzles out, but then they can restart it. So I have a lot of people coming up with like, hey, we had an old GLASS chapter, we want to revamp it. How do I do that? So like that's half of the time that I spend with people trying to get their chapters started is to get them revamped. So people will be like at a command and transfer. They're like, oh, I want this at my command. I want to get this charter bylaws. I want to like, it's very much a fluid thing, but yes, like we're on, so Japan, Bahrain, Gitmo, US, everywhere. And also Guam. So yeah. Nice. Okay. Are you ready for the next step? So you go to the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to the White House or just like the lawn?
No, in the White House, like in their reception room. Yeah.
All right. I may try to look you up on YouTube or Google or something because I mean you had to have been on video. Not that I'm fact checking. I don't really.
Look for Ann Foster, Foster, because Geiman is my married name, so it'll be Ann Foster. But yes.
Okay. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Let me tell you what.
Did you wear your cotton white, working white uniform or your
Dude,
nice
dress white?
All of my stuff. I have this whole thing worked out, man. I'm getting to that. All right, so you get this full. Yeah, I definitely want to see. I just want to see a person in almost. I mean, it is a historical picture. I'm assuming.
What's up? Sorry.
Am I having a problem?
Yeah, sorry. I think it might just be my connection. It's a little choppy, so I'm trying to like
Okay, I'm sorry.
hear what you're saying. No, you're good.
So I definitely want to see your picture. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Actually, I'll send it to Adam real quick.
It'd be cool if I saw.
Like, I have a picture.
Google.
I have a picture of me and Chief together at the White House, which is
Nice.
pretty fun.
So you wore your dress whites.
Mm-hmm.
Who cleaned those?
In the what? Sorry, I wore my dress whites. And
Who cleaned those?
who cleaned those?
Yeah, did you
Fucking
take them somewhere or did you do them yourself?
I did it my fucking self. You know what I was doing? I was stealing napkins at the White House because they've got the presidential seal on
Oh,
them.
nice.
So I'm shoving cocktail napkins in my pockets, trying to make it not obvious. And Dina was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "We're in the White House, and there's like presidential monogram cocktail napkins. I'm taking them."
silverware.
Yeah, I'm like, like I'm like, "There's no
I just
fucking
want to
way
know
I'm
if
not taking."
if you took a uniform on base or outside of base to get cleaned, or if you just did your creases yourself.
This is very important because you're still in A school at this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not even beaten down by the rest of the Navy.
Yeah, literally, I have two little ribbons and one little chevron. I look like such a fucking boot. No, but like I had, and I was terrified. I was terrified because I had to carry my whites with me from San Diego to DC. So when I get there, they're all wrinkly because the garment bag did fuck all to protect them.
Yeah.
So I was like, shit. So I'm desperately trying to not melt my whites, which I've done before, a cell of the quarter board.
It's
melted
hard not
straight
to.
through them once. Well, yeah, it's like fuck. So I was literally having to try and re-iron and re-crease everything.
So at this point, you're not getting. You're probably not getting paid for E4. Did you chalk off the money to get the chloroform shoes, or are you still spit shining your boots?
Oh, I was still like spitting and lighting them on fire and shit. No, yeah, I did not do chloroforms.
We're just painting the White House picture right now.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm just trying to get in the mindset of a young sailor
you know what's
out there
actually-
that's going to like arguably the biggest thing that my feeble little tiny mind could ever comprehend.
I felt so out of place. So like I'm junior enlisted, and they gave me orders to DC to go. So they put me up at like, God, what was it? It was like the Ritz. They put me up at the fucking Ritz Carlton because you could have, I don't know if you like the last time we did
DM and everything
DTS,
else. Yeah.
you're allowed to have a certain amount for lodging. And so because I had no idea what to do, they're like, oh, well, you're allowed to, like $400 a night. And I was only there for 2 days. And so the guy who was doing my orders, he was like, I'm going to get you the most expensive hotel room we can possibly get you. It is at the fucking Ritz. And so here I am, again, just been in the Navy. And my social economic status, my SES is not one to be going to the fucking Ritz Carlton. So I'm at this crazy fancy hotel with a really nice bar on orders, and I'm like, I feel so completely out of place. Like I felt like the help. Like I was like, what? Like I feel like I should be cleaning tables.
Like, can I order a PR or?
Hopefully your BNC paid for some drinks.
She did, but I also had like this, like the travel, the credit card, the GTCC. Yeah. And again, I had never had one before. So they're like, oh yeah, you're allotted like however much a night. I'm like, cool. So we're doing like fancy ass cocktails in the bar. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, this sounds great. So I was just trying to take my BMC's lead because she's also like kind of a quiet, reserved person. But she's like, we're taking pictures in every room and we're doing selfies. And she's like, stop stealing napkins. And and we finally get in, and Obama comes in. And he's doing like the legend, yeah. So he, we're shaking hands, and he's talking to everybody, and everyone gets these like really nicely printed out like proclamations, like his speech that he does, like they do a proclamation every year, and so it's like gilded frame around it, super nice, and like I have nowhere to put it, so I like roll it up to try and get it in my bag. And Chief is like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm like, "I have no place to put this. I'm not gonna just carry around a piece of paper like this the entire time." She's like, "You just rolled up the presidential proclamation that you got at the White House." And I was like, I'm sure we can flatten it later. It'll be
It'll buff out.
You stick it in between two Blue Jacket manuals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
DMR or something, yeah.
I'm just going to keep on rolling here. My friend, our friend, Joshua Cole, he just sent me an article, and you're definitely in there. Your face. And
With Chief.
with the chief.
Which article was it from?
Oh,
Windy
shit.
City Times, I guess, is what those
Oh, Windy City Times. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Windy City Times is a gay newspaper in Chicago, which were the first people to pick up on the story. And then after that, it was like Chicago Tribune, New York Times, all that other shit.
Everybody
And
optioned
but yeah,
it,
they were, yeah, like they were pretty great. And they actually did a documentary, like really gonna like a thing about it. Like they did our interviews and shit like that. And yeah, but it was like the first people who picked up on the story was Windy City Times.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Josh shared that with me, and so I totally saw you when you were 24 years old.
When I was but a wee thing.
Quick-
Yes.
quick question.
It's a wee thing.
I just saw your picture and I have a question now.
Yes.
This neckerchief that you're wearing in your dress white uniform,
Hold on, I gotta go back.
Yes.
did this neckerchief become your inspection ready neckerchief or your quarter officer of the debt or petty officer of the watch neckerchief?
I have only ever had one neckerchief. I've been in the
Whoa.
Navy for 12 years. And it's still the same one because I refuse to
You're a
learn how to
cowboy.
tie it again.
Ever.
I'm just
Why
like-
would you do that? I just
Yeah,
hang it up.
I feel like you had two neckerchiefs. One was your inspection ready neckerchief, and one was your quarter deck petty officer of the watch
We-
neckerchief.
Well, like whenever we stood petty officer of the watch, we only ever did it in like the blueberries. Like we never had to stand it in dress uniform.
Hmm.
Oh, right.
So yeah, no, this one I'm pretty sure I still have that exact same neckerchief. And those are still the original ribbons. I just keep adding them to my rack.
Called
But
them
yeah.
the blueberries. They're called the blueberries.
Nice.
So, but yeah, no,
what'd you
it was
call that?
blueberries. But
Blueberries.
The end of
Yeah, the blue digis.
used.
Okay, we were
Yeah.
out before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys were in the dungarees, yeah. Yeah.
Utilities, yeah. Post dungarees before
Yeah.
Blueberry, yeah.
Back when the
You're in
Navy
in
was really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, now we got
so,
the green, the woodlands.
I want to kind of veer off of, I guess, what everybody wants to talk to you about this, what you started and the legacy and all that. I want to go back further. All right. What year did you graduate high school?
What's my what past?
What year did you graduate high school?
Oh, I graduated in 04.
Okay, 2004. And so you spent a long time not being in the Navy before you joined. All right, so age 24, you decided to go to winter boot camp?
Mm-hmm. Shit fucking
Why?
sucked. That was because I was homeless. I didn't have a job.
Okay,
Like I was
now-
like,
now-
I joined.
All right, there are levels of homelessness.
Yeah.
I have lived with my parents at the age of, let's see, I'm 39 right now. At the age of probably 33, I lived with my parents for about 3-4 months.
Mhm.
I don't consider myself homeless. Now, if I lived in my car for 3 or 4 months, I'm homeless. How homeless were you?
I was car and crashing on friends' couches.
Okay. So
Yeah, I would
not
never, I never had to
not the
sleep on the
worst
street.
level. Okay, not the
No,
worst
no,
level
no,
of homelessness
not
possible,
not by any stretch.
but
Yeah, no,
just-
and I know some people who like lived on like park benches. Like I was not park bench homeless. I was
you're
car.
not a crazy person
and-
homeless. Just
Yeah,
yet.
and I was the kindness of friends and car until so it was I signed the paper in October and then I left in December. So yeah, and that was the year of like the snowpocalypse where like the snow like this like the sign of Wrigley Field got blown off
Yeah.
and like so we were like that was my that was my boot camp experience.
Did the
Okay,
Navy
fucking
ever
congrats.
recognize what you had started or what you had done besides Obama going to the White House? Did the
Hey,
Navy
man,
officially?
I'm in some boot camp
Oh,
stuff right now.
sorry.
We'll get back to
Well,
the big stuff.
So apart from like doing like a bunch of Like I spoke at like Pride Months. Like I spoke at like Navy Region Southwest Pride kind of a thing. Like I did like, all these Pride Month public speaking things. But no, like I never even like I put it like in my evals, but like no.
Not a
No, they wanted me to
collateral
do a
duty or a real eval bullet point, as they say.
So I remember when I was leaving my ship on Milius in 16, there were my Divo wanted to put me in for a comm for it. And then my WEPS was like, we don't give anyone E6 and below a comm for anything. And then my Divo was like, well, what about 2 NAMs? One is a exit NAM and one for a glass NAM. And he basically tried to like smush them together. And so my end of tour award doesn't like when you read it, it literally does not make any sense. Like the way that it is written, looked like they had 2 awards that they just kind of copied and pasted at weird points and just stuck in one award. So I was like, that's super neat. I mean, it's like, whatever. I mean, but honestly, at the same time, like I didn't do it for the medals.
Right. But I was just curious.
Well, now you're on the Average Joe podcast, and I think we're going to be kind of put into that, like, vault library thing here shortly. What do they call that? The Grand Archives or something?
Oh, yeah.
So you'll live forever.
Goal, right?
All right. So you went to winter boot camp, which is absolutely fucking bonkers. I can only imagine how much snow you shoveled. It's so stupid. It makes me angry. So you went to, after boot camp, you go to Great Lakes, obviously, and you do AECFs, you do your blah, 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 blahs. After Tech Corps, where were you ranked? Where were you ranked in your class for Tech? You were number 1? Okay. Yep. Well, you're 24 years old. You take things very seriously at this age. I did not.
As I said, like I'm a good test taker again. Yeah, we have, and of course it was like by class rank. It was your pick on orders. So our command, like at C school, like because again we'd all been together for 2 years. Like I mean, half the people in I was the top C school class.
After you graduated.
Oh yeah, even in Tech Corps, I was still number 1 in Tech Corps. Yeah.
Oh shit! All right, so you're, and to all our other viewers and listeners or whatever, being an FC is not like the smartest job ever in the Navy, but it's probably like top what?
Whoa,
it's top tier.
Top 3.
Yeah,
top 3.
Yeah, I think it's like top 5. Yeah.
I do not consider myself a big brain at all, mostly because I finished relatively bottom of the bottom half of everything that I've ever done.
Claim the brain.
You weren't a spy tech, so.
Which is good for me as an FCS guy. You're a big brain then. You've always been smart. You must have had a great time in high school, like just like blown through everything. I mean, you're smart. You have to be an intelligent person to be number 1 in coming out of Tech Corps and number 1 coming out of A school.
I think I was in the top. I was top 3 in A school, and I was number 1 on C school.
Did you choose?
So yeah. So, but we're also really competitive. Like we were like my group was super competitive.
And so
about
you out of Tech Corps, you chose number 1, and you said I'm gonna be an FC.
You said C, yeah.
FC or ET? Did you have the choice between ET and FC, or did you know you're going to FC all?
No, I think it was by if you had a higher mechanical score on your ASVAB, you went FC, and if you had a higher, I think math score, you went ET. Because that's the,
so
that's
now
the,
they separate you. Is that where it happens?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys know that?
We did ATT as everybody, and then after ATT, that's when they divvied everyone up ETFC. And I'm pretty sure it was based on ASVAB.
Okay.
Like your mechanical composition.
What's ATT?
Advanced technical training.
Advanced technical training. So it's like where you learn about like DC and AC wiring and how electricity works.
I mean, I know what DC and AC wiring is. I'm an FC too.
Yeah, but
And also
we went
was
to
an
that.
FC too. But no, I always was it called that back then too? Or was it
Tech Corps.
AECF?
Apprentice technical training? Yeah, it's Tech Corps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It just
now
wasn't
it's apprentice
hardcore.
technical training.
Okay.
Hardcore Tech Corps.
Hardcore tech. God damn it. So then out of Tech Corps, you don't get to choose FC or ET anymore. Okay, we got to choose.
Oh, got you.
If we
So
did,
that-
good enough.
So yeah,
Yeah, I still would have chosen FC any day of the week.
FC all
There's no
day.
way I want to be
Well,
an
most
I
ET.
did not get to choose, but I'm glad I didn't, and I got FC.
Oh, for sure.
man. Yeah, I don't think I could handle ET. So after you went to FCA school was also in Great Lakes at this time, correct?
Hmm.
All right. I'm marking my notes off here as we go along. And then
Fine.
so you have first pick or top 3 out of A school.
Top 3 out of A school. They just lumped us, so we didn't get to choose what kind of FC we were going to be. It was based solely on what was available for billets. So my entire class in A school all became CWIS techs
Oh.
because that was the only school that was
Oh,
available.
fuck
So
me.
half of us went to
That's
Virginia
good.
and half of us went to San Diego. So
That's
I had
that's my next question was I did was CWIS school even an option in San Diego when we were coming up, guys?
I
So-
think so.
Maybe, I don't
yeah,
know.
because it's the main school now
I
for
thought it was-
CWIS, like
I thought it was
CWIS
always
and
Dan-
5-inch.
Not Dahlgren, Damneck?
Damnick is,
Demnick, yeah.
yes, he was, yeah.
I thought that's where
Yeah.
all CWIS techs was Damneck.
No, I think it was still split
No.
back.
Was
Might
it?
depend, they probably try to,
And so
And-
they went. They couldn't have gone strictly by billets. I believe you. I'm just kind of like floored that they would just go by. An entire class of 20 has to be CWIS techs.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I don't like that.
We
idea.
had two guys go quad ball, which was crazy because they went on a pre-com and
What
they
was that?
desperately. I think it was
What's
the
that? What's
USS
quad ball? Right.
Quad
So,
zero.
I
quad
remember,
ball
I remember the term.
all zero. So yeah, so you don't get any NEC. You don't get a FC specific one because they needed people on the Anchorage. And so you basically went as just a blanket quad ball FC to the Anchorage. And then they found out from there what kind of FCs they needed and they sent them to
That's
school.
right. I remember people being like, "Do we know any?" I know that we said those names. I knew I heard quad ball before, but Donald Cook guys, we didn't. Do we have any?
Nah, I don't think so.
No, it was pretty rare. Like I know, like again, like out of our entire group of people who went through, only 2 were quad ball.
All right.
So yeah.
You gotta
So
remember,
okay. Go ahead.
we were overmanned. We were overmanned at that point.
Mhm.
Oh, dude, it was crazy.
Yeah.
So you go to CWIS school, you go to San Diego.
Mhm.
We may have been
Alright.
overmanned, but I sure stood a lot of watch.
Oh shit, dude.
know,
It's never undermanned.
the
most
rating
of the
was
time.
overmanned. That's why we didn't have any advancement.
3%, right?
All right. So
Right.
after you go to you get to go to CWIS C school, and then you're number 1 in your class.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so
So
you get-
because I was number
you
1,
get-
I got first pick of orders. Yeah.
First pick of orders, cool. And you
Yeah.
chose what ship? We never even said the ship you were on.
So yeah, so I wanted a small boy out of San Diego, so
Nice.
I ended up choosing USS Milius DDG-69. So they're now home port
Nice.
shifted to. I know, right? It was funny too because I walked in and it was
I
like
always
they
say
did it by
nice
class
every
rank.
time.
Oh, you have to say
Yeah,
nice.
come
But
on.
like you walked in and all the billet options were on the board, and it was like for male, female, or just for male billets. And it was actually really cool because we'd all been together since boot camp, so we all were really close. And I think the detailer who was there saw like how tight knit we were, and we had one guy who had a kid, and his family was in Florida, and so we're like, listen, regardless of his class rank, he gets Mayport.
Mhm.
Like no matter what, no one's gonna choose Mayport. That's his. And
Yeah,
I think
there
they were
was
so
always-
floored by yeah, so like I think they were so like shocked by the fact that we did that everyone got at least the coast they wanted. So everyone who wanted Virginia, everyone who wanted San Diego, everyone who wanted Japan got those orders.
Hmm.
So I wanted a small boy in San Diego, so I picked USS Milius DDG-69, and then yeah, I
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Now I want to say
Nice.
yeah. But they said it. All right, very cool. So you were small boy Navy.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
destroyer.
That's awesome.
always. I
That's
mean, especially
awesome.
like because I didn't want to go to a ship where like being an FC wasn't a big like if you're on a carrier, it's like AOs are the big fucking deal because they're the ones like doing ordnance.
Yeah.
But like on a small boy, like especially with CWIS, like CWIS is one of those more like it's fun to see to shoot, it's fun to work on.
Now, have you
and, being in
seen
CG,
have you
like-
seen Top Gun Maverick?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think everyone here has too, right? Except with the exception of probably Josh. I'm assuming Josh
I
is
started
not.
cheering. I started cheering when the tomahawks were launched.
Yeah.
Like I was pretty
Off the
jazzed with
CG,
the movie,
yeah.
and then there were like all the fucking tomahawks, and I was like,
The
yeah.
Leyte Gulf. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was acting stupid. I definitely was.
Yeah.
That,
Of course, my argument was like, if they had tomahawks, why didn't they just shoot it at the target to begin with? But
Right, Adam?
Yeah.
Come on.
Surface
Yeah.
to
They're made for
air.
good movies. They're made for good
Yes.
movies.
yeah,
Tom
you gotta
Hanks was-
suspend belief.
Tomahawk
those-
goes are subsonic, and there's surface to air missiles.
got you.
All right, so we've got the ship that you are on.
Yeah.
All right. I only have 2 more topics.
I'm happy to be
would-
working down this list with you.
Why would you get out? I mean, at 6 years, you decided that you wanted to leave the Navy. Keep in mind here that I was a loser from the second I walked in the door to the second that I walked out. I'm not important. I'm not cool. These guys know they're not that awesome
But-
either, to be honest.
But at least
you
you're
know?
self-aware.
Exactly. I'm self-aware.
And that's
I'm
half
like
the
the
battle.
Ryan Reynolds of the
Yourself.
Navy. So, I mean, like at this point in time, like you're like a legitimate somebody. I mean, like people like may or may not know who you are, but eventually, especially in small boy Navy, that shit gets around. And while it may not, resonate with like E2s, E3s, E4s, E5s, but the higher ups know that you are definitely like a person that can get people to rally around you.
Highly motivated
Natural born leader, obviously, and maybe you don't feel you are a natural born leader, but you were 24 years old with a bunch of like 18, 19, 20-year-olds when you're in boot camp. But I mean, still at the bottom line, I mean, you started something that's, maybe it was like lightning in a bottle. Like the whole, it got repealed, and you were just at the right time or whatever. But I mean, like, why get out? I mean, like, seriously, I just don't understand why. It just seems like such an easy path to like the rest of life.
So, with the caveat that I'm still technically in.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So, but why get off of active duty for sure? So the biggest thing is my wife just got their PhD, and I knew that, and it's a PhD in psychology. So I live in a feelings palace, and and I knew that the nature of their degree was one that did not facilitate easy moving around, because you have to be certified in the state that you work. It kind of like nursing or anything like that. And I knew that if I decided to stay active duty, Jen would have still supported me. We'd still be together. But I also recognized that the ability to do, say, reserves and still advance and still make an impact while also doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do over here was something that was really nice. So like I was able to like get my degree. I knocked out my bachelor's in 3 years. And I wanted to do something that was still kind of like with the camaraderie with the Navy, which actually kind of gets us to brewing, because I was in San Diego and I didn't know what I wanted to fucking do when I grew up. And, I was like, shit, I'm doing it. This is my 3rd career change, because I was a photojournalist and now I was in the Navy. And then I was like, I have to do a new career. What the fuck? So we went on this brewery tour at Stone down in San Diego, Stone Brewing Company. And I remember walking around and looking at all this shit, which is super good. And I remember looking at like all this shit. I'm like, all these cooling systems and all this pneumatic air and all of these pieces of machinery, I already know how to work on. It's very similar. I'm already familiar with it. I already know how to troubleshoot in this environment. I know how to do AC/DC motors. I know how to fix mechanical and electrical. So I looked, and Jen was in Colorado with grad school. And so I just looked up, like, are there any brewing or science programs? Because I really love science. And Colorado State University had a fermentation science degree. So it's basically like a microbiome degree with an emphasis on food science and like things that ferment. So everything from beer to chocolate, soy sauce, kimchi, whatever. So I was like, perfect. I can just work in a brewery because I already know how to deal with this equipment. I just need to know the science behind it. So I got the science degree. So in the time that I've been out of active duty, I made first as a yeoman. Like I had a cross rate. I had to take the FC2 because I was at FC2 when I left. I had to take the YN2 exam to cross rate. And then the next cycle, I took the YN1 exam and made it. So in the span of 1 year, I went from an FC2 to a YN1. And then and then I was able to make chief. So I haven't made chief yet, but I was able to test for chief. So like I made board this year again too. And
Nice.
I've been able to go to Africa. I've been able to go to Europe. I've been able to continue as like an auxiliary thing with Glass. Like I think last year, it was something like 12 different chapters reached out to get started, to me specifically. Not even just in general started. That's just people reaching out to me since January this year. There's been 4. So I'm still able to do the Glass things and help grow the program and act as a sounding board, but from more of a back thing, while also being able to like make beer and have that same kind of camaraderie that I miss as being an FC or being in CG or being on the Destroyer, because the craft brewing community is very similar to the Navy community. You know what I mean? Like it's a very similar kind of lateral shift, but I can still do what I want to do and be Joe Navy in my capacity as LPO for my unit. So when we go to Africa, we do these big exercises. So I'm taking, 15, 20 guys downrange to some fucking remote places to do like interagency, multinational exercises with these countries that I can still feel proud of the work I'm doing without having to fucking go back to sea. Because honestly, if I never have to go to sea again, I don't even want to go on a fucking cruise with my wife. Jen's like, we could go on a riverboat cruise. I'm like, you don't get it, man. I've sailed across the Pacific multiple times. I don't want to go on a fucking cruise. Like, I just don't want to do it. If I don't have to fucking stand watch.
Boring. You don't.
Oh my
there's
God.
nothing to
Like,
do, and you're just trying to enjoy a ship.
You were, well, I guess you only did 6 years, so yeah, you were just a West Coast sailor then.
Yeah.
Are you?
Okay,
Yeah, so I was
cool.
West Coast.
Did you say you made board?
Yeah, this is the second time I've made board.
This is in the reserve.
You didn't make cheat the first time around?
Huh? Yeah, I made board last year, but my record was jacked up. So I didn't make it last year, but then I made board this year. So I find out in July if I made it.
Oh, awesome. Good
if
luck.
I made chief.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I kind of don't want to make it this year because I'm also moving to Chicago this summer because I'll be a head brewer at a brewery out there. And I'm just kind of like, I don't want to go. Actually, no. So I was going to apply for Goose Island and I don't want to work overnights anymore. But this smaller brewery called Alarmist was hiring for a head brewer. So they're like,
cool.
yeah, let's do it. So
Cool.
yeah, but my assistant is from Goose Island. I have an assistant now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, very cool. I hope you make. I guess if you don't want to make chief, I still hope you make chief, even though you don't want to.
If I make it, awesome. It's just logistically going to be a bitch because I'm still attached to my Denver unit until December, but I'll be drilling out of Great Lakes, so it's going to be a really weird like. Where do I do a season? If I have to do a season this year, at least if I make it next year, I will have been like in my new unit in Great Lakes, so it won't be as much of an issue. At least in theory.
And, my last thing, and then we can go on to whatever else about your life you want.
Thank you.
Is you chose from FC, you went to YN. Made YN.
I didn't choose YN. I didn't choose YN. They gave me YN. Because I was in school, I was getting my bachelor's, I didn't want to get a rate that I had to go to fucking A school again for. I'm like, I've already done 2 years of schooling. Give me a rate that I don't have to go to fucking school for. It was YN, MA, or can't remember the other one. There was one other one that I didn't need. I was like, well, I don't really want to be an MA, even though like I worked in CG, so I was doing basically gunner's mate work anyway.
I was trying to stand and
I was like,
all day long.
I don't, yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, and it's funny because like when I had to be a yeoman, all my FC friends gave me so much shit. They're like, this is such a fucking weenie job. It's not cool at all. And then I'm like, yeah, I've been to Italy 6 times and Africa twice with this unit. So I was
definitely going to call you a weenie. That was definitely, I had an arrow off of YN1. I was going to call you a wiener about it. But then
exactly.
I got to, then you were like, well, I get to go to all these places and Also, the fact
Well,
that
and it's
I
funny.
go back to A school and YN's not a bad job.
No, it's not a bad job at all. Like I was grumpy at first. I met this YNC. We were in Seychelles this last summer for exercise, and he's attached. I know. He was attached to the
So you're a shell
Mauritian
back
embassy.
then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I made shell back when I was on active duty, and he was attached to the. He's a yeoman attached to the Mauritian embassy, and he was there for the exercise, and we're chatting, and he was a former gunner's mate who went with like special forces gunner's mate, and he had to be force converted to YN as well. And so we were kind of like, yeah, tactical yeoman, because we had all this weapons experience, but we were still doing like weird bullshit yeoman stuff. But it was funny too, because I do have a background in journalism and photography, I was doing like all this MC content creation while I was out there, in addition to being LPO, in addition to yeoman shit, in addition to logistics and delivery, like all this other shit. So like as a reservist, I'm doing so many more things that I've had experience in, as opposed to just working on my weapon system. So even though I still technically have the NECs. So if I was to get deployed, I could theoretically still do FC stuff.
In my free time in the Navy, I spent mostly helping my friends finish off kegs. So it's refreshing to see somebody that
Made a difference.
that did something to somebody else other than giving cigarettes to the 14-year-old kids in the apartment complex with me.
Allegedly.
Hey,
Allegedly.
I did have a question.
So
I know everything. The conversation's been great, but did you ever receive? I guess more like when you were on active duty, because it was such a changing time. Did you ever receive any negative pushback or underhanded comments from your fellow shipmates, or was there a I mean, we don't have to name any names. I was just curious. It seemed like you were well welcomed. That idea was well welcomed. Everything was so, and I know that not everything's so, I know life isn't always so perfect. So I was,
it wasn't.
There were some other
And I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And I talk more about this in the Permission to Speak Freely podcast. But my first year on my ship, we had one other woman in the division, and I think there was maybe 3 total in the entire weapons department. And my work center soup was this like super conservative gung-ho dude from Alabama who just like did not want women in the Navy, and sure as hell did not want gay people in the Navy. And he got me. And he was just like, and he was like one of these like, and I don't know why people do this whole like, I'm an alpha. I'm like, cool, do you have snacks for everyone? Because that's what alphas do. Make sure everyone's fed and safe instead of being a prick. Alpha does not equate to prick. I digress. Anywho, so this fucking guy was my work center soup as a CWIS tech, and they had just gotten back from deployment when I got to the ship. So everyone had like, everyone had bonded. It was all bro-y and great. And then this like fucking little social justice queer chick comes in. I'm like, hi, I'm going to start a chapter. Blah, 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 blah. So, and the big thing that pissed everyone off is I had gotten the EP when I got to the ship, because I was SAPR victim advocate and started a glass chapter and gotten all my quals and actually did maintenance. So, so my first year was a lot of passive aggressive bullshit, a lot of negativity, a lot of shit talking. Not even of like you as a person, but like, I don't understand why these gays want, where's straight pride month and all this other bullshit. Meanwhile, sailors are killing themselves on ships, and I'm getting phone calls at 2:00 in the morning about it. And, talking about like, how different commands are, like, I've been incredibly fortunate. And I recognize this. Of every command I've ever been at, I've had a very supportive triad. I've had a very supportive mess. Even when I went to DRB that one time, but I digress again. Not my fault. But it was one of those things where I was fortunate that I had like the triad support, but I still really had to kind of cut my teeth and get street cred from the deck plate level. And that took a while, especially because, I mean, like, I imagine you guys have read a Facebook comment before. There's these things called Facebook comments.
Might have seen
And so
one.
every time, a few of them, and that they are like the best parts of humanity are on Facebook comments, especially like military Facebook pages. So every time that I was like doing a Pride Month thing, or like I think it was like the Navy Times, they were trying to do like, sailor spotlights for Pride Month. And they got to me, like I was the first one, and the backlash was so terrible, they just canceled it for the rest of the month. And so you're talking like all this like crazy shit. So it's like, not only you're trying to do your job, not only you're trying to do this organization and trying to help support people, but then you're also just getting this like constant just bullshit deluge of just negativity and people questioning motives. And I remember there was this other ship that was same, and I've told the story on Permission to Speak Freely, but there was this other ship that was the same platform as ours. And the only out gay man on the ship completed suicide on watch because they were going to force him to go on deployment. And he had begged for a transfer. Like none of the gay people on this ship slept in berthing because they were afraid. Like they would sleep in lockable compartments because they just like all the lesbians on the ship were dealing with all this sexual harassment. And the one out gay dude was basically bullied to suicide while on watch. And this was during the time when sexual orientation was not covered under equal opportunity. So myself and a gay Master Chief BB, we tried to do a investigation, a semio investigation about the command climate, because one of the lesbians had reached out to me, told me what happened. And so she's like, we're trying to start a chapter. I wanted to give them a talk just because people were saying the most horrendous shit on the deck plates, even like after like they did an all hands call after he died. And people were saying this like homophobic shit in ranks after walking over his fucking blood on the quarterdeck, kind of a thing.
Fuck.
And so she's like, which is so fucked. And then you're just like, all right, cool. So they wouldn't allow her to do any kind of training about LGBT people at all. So we wanted to do a semio complaint, but because we weren't covered under equal opportunity, sexual orientation was not a reason to launch a semio complaint. So that command was never investigated for the way it acted and the command climate that led to that suicide. So when you talk about how incredibly fortunate I've been and how cool everything was, that was very much just, again, like a lightning in the bottle, stars aligned thing that protected me from a lot of bullshit. Whereas other people on a platform the exact same as mine with the exact same mission had the complete opposite experience. So, and that's still a thing today. Like it's very much dependent on your triad. It very much depends on command climate, depends on how you get treated. And you can be the best sailor, you can be the hardest working sailor, and that doesn't mean fuck all when you're just, we have a suicide problem in the Navy anyway. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, feeling marginalized, feeling not part of the team, and then being constantly harassed. So that, yeah. So like, again, have I had amazing commands? Even now, like as a reservist, I have some, I don't have the best relationship with my current CO, but we still are able to work together.
What's
the
biggest resistance to starting a glass chapter in a command, if any?
I would say it's easier now just because there's so many of them. The biggest thing before was like, if you go up to your skipper or whatever and you're like, hey, I want to start a chapter, people are like, well, what's wrong? Why do you feel like you need to do this? Like, no, nothing has to be wrong to start this. But also depending on like, if they don't agree with the lifestyle, they're going to be less likely to want to help you with that. Like they're going to be less likely to like, we had this one sailor, she reached out to me and she's like, we have a glass chapter, but they won't let us fundraise and we can't have any events on the ship at all. And I was like, so you have no ability to do anything because you can't make money and you can't have anything during the day. I'm like, so they have a chapter, but it's basically cut off at the knees. Whereas you have other ships that are doing like fucking drag shows. And that 100% comes down to the command. And again, sometimes it's like, you just have to wait till that skipper leaves. You have to wait till that master chief leaves. You have to wait till you get, someone in khakis who's willing to be your advocate and fight for you behind those closed doors that especially junior enlisted aren't privy to. So like whenever someone wants to start a chapter, like I'll give them all the paperwork. I'm like, find yourself a mentor, ask around, see if there's any support for other people wanting to start a chapter, and then have a sit down with your triad before it crosses their desk to answer any questions. Makes it a little bit easier instead of just like sending up this paperwork and they're like blindsided. What the fuck is this? Why do we need this? What's happening? Like, so, but yeah, there's still pushback in 2022. Like,
yeah.
Can you go over how to start a chapter at your command?
Yeah, so either you can, usually Facebook is the easiest way to do it, if you don't already have charter and bylaws. But once you get them, either you find someone online or you know someone who has them. You go to your admin, they adminize it. Because I'm a bad yeoman, I haven't done it yet. They're still from like 2014, and like the font's all fucked up and the margins. I'm like, they're like, aren't you a YN1? I'm like, technically. Um, but so basically you adminize it, you get all set, and then you find again like a khaki, like either a chief or a JO who's willing to be your advisor. You ask around, see who was interested in doing it, because it's easier to be like, hey, yeah, we got like 30 people who want to be a part of this, as opposed to like, I'm the only one, you know. And then again, yeah, you just schedule, if you can sit down with your CMC or anyone from your triad, ideally all three, talk to them about it, why it's important, other commands that have it, you know, why you think that it would be a good fit, and then you route out your paperwork, and then once it's approved, then it's an officially chartered part of your organization.
Well, it's ultimately like a advocacy, or like it's and like for assistance and like help. So it's not necessarily like, again, nothing has to be wrong. It's just we want to have this tool to help the people that, you know, would benefit or, you know, need
and
guidance, whatever
you
kind of
think
thing.
too, like, oh, absolutely. And you think of like, I mean, I don't know where all y'all are from, but like, imagine like a small town, and like there's a kid who wants to get out of that small town, and they know they're gay, and then they get to a ship and they don't know anyone, they're just coming out and there's no resources. What ends up happening? I had a chief who I was talking to about glass, and he was super flamboyant, and I was like, oh yeah, this dude's gay, like we're vibing, we're on the same page. And he said he was from, you know, a small town in Texas, joined the Navy, knew he was gay, and he was in Great Lakes. He went down to Chicago when he was a young sailor, and his first experience with a man sexually was a sexual assault, because there was nobody there to protect him. There was no group he could go to, and he ended up getting in a situation where that happened. And he told me straight up, he's like, what I would have given to have a group like this when I was a young kid, just trying to figure this out. You know, and also like straight sailors who have like, you know, my mom came out as gay, or my sister's gay, or my little brother's trans. What does this mean? And it's like, yeah, like this is for them too. You know, not only for the gay sailors and trans sailors and everything else, but also to kind of show that like people who might not have had experience with gay people, this is what gay people are. It's not necessarily a stereotype. I mean, even though sometimes we are very, very stereotypical. So
The best smelling people on the ship.
Not bad. Not bad. What was your favorite meal on the ship, and why was it not Thanksgiving?
Hamsters, man. Always hamsters. Those are the only things that were ever cooked well.
The cordon bleus.
The cordon bleus.
Oh man, yeah.
We started calling those after we got out, man.
Oh
It
yeah,
was really
yeah,
funny.
hamsters.
We need to narrow down when that term started being used.
Say again.
I've only ever known them as hamsters. But yeah, so the chicken cordon bleus.
May have been a command thing or something.
That wasn't us. I'll tell you what. When you got one that was cooked perfectly, that was definitely top notch. And a lot of us in this, I don't know. I never had chicken cordon bleu in my life.
Until
I still eat them to
Until I
this
got the
day.
Navy, and I order at restaurants now. I'm gonna jump a
You're so
catfish
brave.
down the house.
Oh, the catfish. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna jump a
Dude,
catfish
I
and
remember this
order
one time. I remember this one time they put tapioca pudding next to what's that white shit you put on fish?
Tartar
tartar
sauce.
sauce.
Tartar sauce. And they didn't label them. So everyone was putting tapioca on their fish and having bowls of tartar sauce for dessert.
All
And I'm like,
right.
this is the most fucked up nonsense.
All
Like
right.
this bullshit. I was so pissed.
I believed a lot of your stories until you basically twisted my favorite story about eating sour cream on a pumpkin pie into your own story about tapioca pudding fish sticks.
Yeah.
That's
And
funny.
And I want to one up that story with I put sour cream on what I thought was a pumpkin pie, but was actually a sweet potato pie. What's your least favorite meal on a ship?
Like everything else. Like I remember on deployment, I hated the food so much. I lost like 30 pounds on deployment because I insisted that Jen send me like dry miso soup that I could just add hot water to and just ate up in my shop just because the food was so god awful. Then I'm like,
Oh, wow.
can't do it. Like every now and then, maybe mid rats they would do like grilled cheese, but like other than that, like everything else, I was like,
Oh man, we had
Can't do
awesome.
it.
We must had a rare
Some people
opportunity.
didn't like the institutional food.
you know what was really, you know what I liked a lot? The super high, the milk, the fucking like the high,
Right.
the
Oh,
high pasteurized milk.
Sexy.
That's
Because
so
it was
cute.
sweet. It was already kind of like sweet milk because it was
Mhm.
already like all the proteins were basically destroyed. So it
That's
tasted like
right.
sugar.
I gotta check out of this because you and Josh Cole can talk for about 12 hours about camel
They
milk.
become those big giant sacks.
And they can sit out on the mess decks for 3 weeks. I'm not drinking that.
Well, some good ass milk with some
Yeah.
cereal.
Oh man.
Mhm.
Oh,
You drink that shit? I thought you hated it.
Yeah,
too.
man. Yeah,
Oh no, I'm
Yeah,
not drinking
man.
that high temp milk.
Disgusting.
You didn't drink it. I know Andy didn't drink it. He was too
I
busy
don't-
getting eggs squirted on him.
yeah, man.
No, man, I'm not drinking that shit. That's ugh.
Good, dude.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
trust
it.
it.
I guess we're doing the general Navy questions right now, then, Joe.
You went.
I just kind of like, as she was talking, like she kind of glossed over things that I had wrote down, and like I didn't know about San Diego and stuff. And there's some other things that I was really curious about. Who
Well,
pressed her
let me ask the last one then. When we ask these like to every like new person on the podcast, these like 3 questions. The last one is there a film that you think of like when you're on deployment and whatever, regardless of what you're doing, you walk by the lounge and there's a movie playing and you have to watch it for like 10, 15 minutes? Is there a film that you could think of?
We had one movie that I'm pretty sure was played on repeat, and every time I see it or hear it, I think of deployment. And I've only ever seen, I think I've seen the entire thing once, but I only ever caught like the last like 30 minutes of the movie every single time. Pitch Perfect. Pitch Perfect was on repeat.
The different Navy.
Yeah, exactly. But I could
I don't know
see
why.
that being a thing.
Yeah.
Well, my movie is Bring It On. So
Different time. It's a different time. It's the same movie, different time.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
true.
Time,
That's basically
absolutely.
true.
One's
Mean Girls, you know.
yeah, but I don't know why. I think it was just like a running joke that all the guys just wanted to see like Anna Kendrick a lot, and so it was every single time you walked past it, that movie was on. But it was I only kept on catching like the last half hour of it. So you're just like you watch, like all right, kind of ruins the
this
movie
is
if you know how it ends.
This is like you're doing a wake up call and you walk by the lounge and it's playing. You're like,
Like,
oh,
oh shit.
watch it
Mm-hmm.
like 12 minutes or
Yeah.
something. Any favorite foreign ports that you particularly enjoy?
On the ship, Singapore was awesome. Saipan was awesome. But as a reservist, I go to Naples, Italy a lot, which is super fun. Like I really like kind of palling around there. Seychelles was awesome. We were there for like 2.5 weeks this last summer, which was just like phenomenal. Yeah, but definitely I like Singapore. I like the food in Singapore. Singapore had the best food for sure. But I think the people in like Saipan were the nicest.
Do you guys have any Navy related questions before we get into this brewery stuff? Joe, take a look at your notes.
I am looking.
I just imagine it's like this thick of notes, and you're
No,
just
it's I've been marking them off as like, if you can see that.
oh, got you. Oh, nice.
I got a lot of scribbles. No, it's just like, as we're talking, like this thing's like.
Joe,
my
do you
interest.
write in boot camp style writing?
Yeah, I've been writing in all caps since I was 18,
Yeah, same.
and I'll tell you what, it's so. I can write in cursive, but boot camp style writing is just like really easy. Everybody can read it. I've had multiple people, women, men, compliment me on my handwriting, and I'm just a block letter guy, and I'm really fast at it now. Like my
Mhm.
Like it's weird. I still trip out on how I do eights. Like I still do the double.
Oh, I do a 0 and a 0. A kid saw me doing that. I used to work with when I worked at a warehouse, and he was like, "Why do you write eights like that? Like everybody knows you do the eights." And I said, "Well, in boot camp, you do it like this." And he was like, "Okay, buddy, sure." Like he didn't believe me, and I'm like, "Dude, you got club feet. You'll never find out."
You know that? Do you still do like the zeros with the line through it,
Yeah.
so you can tell it's a zero?
I used to do that. I used until I've taken so many notes in my life that I know what my zeros and my O's are just like slightly different. Because I've been taking notes for a long time with the job that I have, so I know. But I used to be that slash guy. I mean, until I was probably like 30.
I write my Z's with the slash, but that's because I was like really into math in high school.
Oh, okay, all right. Good thing you didn't take that test before it'd be an ET.
Let's talk about beers for a hot second.
Yeah. So I do have questions about that. So you got out of the Navy, this and other thing, and then now you are currently brewing overnights at in Colorado.
I just
Mhm,
want to
yeah,
I just want to add that 1 year me and Joe, we took a cross country trip from California to Virginia, and we stopped in Golden, Colorado, and we took a brewery tour of the Coors Brewery, and that was like one of my favorite tours I've ever taken in my entire life. I learned
Oh yeah.
so much about brewing.
You know, it's fun if you oh yeah, like it's a great tour.
2006.
Oh wow.
But
Yeah, if you watch the new Star Trek, the like the movies, like the ones that came out a couple of years ago, like the new Spock and Kirk, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he gets like teleported into the engineering spaces, and he's like in a water tube. That's actually filmed at the Budweiser Brewery. All those pipes are from the brewery. Like
In
that's
St.
why it was so
Louis?
like with like all the catwalks. It's like the new
In St. Louis or not?
like it's the Star Trek where like it was like basically like an alternate universe, but it's
Oh.
like the movies, not the show. But like
Chris
what's his
Pine?
name? Yeah, the first Chris Pine one.
So
They-
the tube scene, they're shooting that in St. Louis, Missouri?
At one of the plants, there's a couple different Budweiser plants, but that's like how big those facilities are with like transferring their wort and stuff like that. Like it's, yeah. So
That's okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, fun fact.
Hey.
No, but I love it though. Like I love brewing beer. Like honestly, like the triple that you're drinking is my favorite of our New Belgium beers, just because I'm over drinking the Voodoo Rangers, or as I like to call it, Johnny Depp's skeleton. So
He doesn't have enough bracelets on to be Johnny Depp's skeleton, so
That
cut
is
it
true.
out.
we'll review our beers at the very end.
Yeah.
What got you in? Like, I know you kind of told us about, you took the tour and then you saw the equipment or whatnot, and you felt like,
Yeah, it's interesting. You go from photographer to CWIS tech to
Yeoman to-
brewmeister.
Yeah.
well, I love history. Like I work 12-hour shifts overnight, so I just put in my earbuds and I listen to podcasts all night. And like 80% of my podcasts are fucking history podcasts. And so like brewing and like fermentation and general, like so like I was one of those people during the pandemic that was just making a lot of sourdough. Like I was one of those guys. But like it's a perfect like blend of like science and history and like food, which I really like. And so like every aspect that you look at, like any kind of alcoholic fermentation is like, it's fascinating no matter how you look at it. So, and it's something that there's so many different styles and there's so many different things you can do with it. And it's so subjective, and I love it. Like honestly, had I been living in California or been moving to California, I would have gotten my degree in like viticulture to do wine, because I prefer wine over beer in general. But yeah, like there's something about beer that just historically, like, and like women historically used to make beer, and then like there's a whole history of women brewers that we're trying to kind of reclaim now as an industry, which is really nice. So yeah, I mean,
Cool,
I thought it
man.
was fascinating. And the more I learned about it, you're like, how fucking cool is this shit? Like
Right.
we're corralling microbes to make food we like. Like,
Yeah,
The
it's
yeast
like
are cool, man. The yeast are the cool little creatures.
it's like a living
really are.
organism, and we're like drinking its byproducts essentially. Correct? Am I?
well, yeah, and it's funny because like you could argue that like technically the yeast are using us to make their food
Hmm.
because like not every animal likes alcohol, but we like it so much that we're willing to make all this perfect sugar water for them so they can just live their best little yeast lives. And we just happen to eat their piss and shit.
Yeah, right.
They've trained us well.
They really do. Like it's kind of like our microbial overlords. But like everything
No.
from like again bread, any kind of fermentation at all, you're just like, holy shit, this is
Oh,
fantastic.
yeah.
Like
Also, hey, have you seen where they've? And this is probably just some crazy thing I've seen. I've seen where they've modified that yeast cell and it can produce other things. Like I've seen them where the yeast cell can produce insulin for diabetics. I don't know if you've seen that, or I thought that was quite a cool little. That's just a cool little. Is it a single? Is it a single cell organism?
yeah, it's kind of closer to like say mushrooms than you would say to like an animal cell. So it's able to propagate, basically just grows. Think of like a succulent, like you have like a cactus. It'll sprout off and grow that way, and then it can also like basically get cut up and like it'll replicate, and then those just sprout off on themselves. So if you look at them under a microscope, you can see these tiny little like ringlet circles where their little spores popped off of them. And like different yeast will have the spores in different areas. Like it's super cool. And like different temperatures, they make different flavors. Like we had like people in Europe knew what banana tasted like before we quote unquote discovered bananas because yeast creates a byproduct like in a Hefeweizen that creates that flavor compound. So when we went and did this whole colonization thing and discovered bananas, quote unquote, we're like, oh, this tastes exactly like a Hefeweizen. But we had that flavor already before we discovered the fruit that made that flavor because yeast made that flavor.
Has working at a brewery affected your beer enjoyment at all, or is it?
Well, it's definitely affected my weight. I like we get so much. Okay, so I work overnights, right? Midnight we have a shifty, so everyone stops what they're doing and drinks at midnight, and then we'd stop and we drink again at 4:20 in the morning. And then I'm able to get, I know, truly, and then I'm allotted 24 free beers a week, and I have as much beer
quit
as
your job, Joe.
Yeah, and then
just broke
Joe
Joe.
is packing his bags right
Joe-
now.
Joe is
Fly to
broken.
Colorado.
He's done.
well, and then when you go into the tap room, I just go behind the bar and I pour whatever I want, as much as I want. So I like literally like we have a walk-in cooler that is just full of beer for us to take home. It's like whatever you want to do. So I used to be a big kind of weird beer snob about shit, and then I realized that like even if you drink, say Coors or Budweiser, they make like millions of barrels of beer a year, and it all tastes exactly the same. And everything that goes into that product is a natural product. The water, the grain, the hops, the yeast, and they all change every year. Like if you're making wine, you have like, oh, 2019 was a great year for blah, blah, blah. You can't do that with beer. You have to make it taste the exact same, even though those products are always changing. So some years it's a bad grain year, some years it's a bad hop year, and you still have to basically create something that tastes the way you want it to taste every time. And that's like a modern marvel. Like the fact that, so like I used to be like, fuck people who drink Coors and Budweiser. And now I'm just like, drink what you like to drink, man. That's cool as fuck. Like,
Yeah.
Did you ever
You
see
know.
that episode of like the Foods of Made America or whatever it was? They had that one like PBR and like hams and old style.
yeah.
It was pretty interesting because I mean they were like the kings of beer making for like 50 years in the 20s or whatever. It's just funny to me.
Oh, yeah, dude.
And every once in a while I'll tell you what, I grab a Schlitz. And I like it. I still have a good time with it. They changed the
I mean, sometimes I'll do PBR. It's all good. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like some people are like, I only drink IPA. Like my father-in-law is like a double IPA dude, and I'm like, have fun. Like I have zero desire to drink that shit. I just can't anymore. Because if
I
I'm
like
going
a
to drink
good-
something, I want to drink more than one of them. So I can't drink more than one IPA. So if I want to drink something like with that triple, that you're drinking. Granted, it's like what 9% or 8.5%, but it's it's fucking delicious. You can drink that shit all day.
Does it taste all boozy? Oh, we'll get to the beer fruity later. I'm sorry.
Did you see was it How Beer Saved the World or whatever, that documentary?
Is that what I was thinking of with when they talk about like hams and Schlitz and all that?
No, this is like how literally beer saved the world. Like
Because they were boiling
early
beer and they didn't know
beer
boiling
brewing,
was
like in
sanitizing.
like caveman times and stuff like that, allowed like the men or the whoever, the the tribes people to go out like into the fields and like hunt and stuff, and then they would come back and they had like early fermented beer, like basic beer brew to drink when they came back. And like because like the process of brewing, like the boiling of water and whatever else, like got out the impurities in the water, like you were ultimately healthier in that
Healthier
sense.
for drinking beer than just drinking water.
Yeah, than the water with all the shit in it.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking at the label of this triple. It's 8.5% ABV, but on the label it also says serve between 48 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which is pretty dope.
Oh yeah, like there's different temperatures, and that's the thing. It's like, with beer, like I mean, it was either drink beer or drink shit water.
Yeah.
Like that was your option back in the day. And as much fun as shit water is, but also like it wasn't like 9%. You know what I mean? Like they would be, they would be drinking like 3%, but like all the yeast basically outperforms any bacteria, and it kills any other bacteria in that solution. And also, beer is acidic enough to anything that would make you sick can't survive in that pH. Any amount of alcohol it can't survive in. So like 3 different ways, basically beer in that environment is healthier. Like there was a Dr. John Snow in the 1800s. He found the causative agent of cholera, and he was the first person to I know, right? So he found this one pump in London that was getting everyone sick. Oh no, it's typhoid. Everyone was getting sick from this one pump, and so he literally was the first person to like plot where everyone was getting sick and find where that location was, and proved it was from dirty water. So he took the handle off of the pump, and he realized the only people who weren't getting sick in that neighborhood were the guys who worked in the brewery because they were just drinking beer. So it's cool shit like that. But yes, John Snow. There's a pub. There's his namesake pub in London.
What kind of beers does Anne enjoy?
I'm a big German beer fan. And it's not just because I'm a weird snob about it, but like there's something about like a nice kind of like evenly malty, not super hoppy, and you can just like there's this brewery down the road called Zwei, and it's a German brewery here. It's probably the best beer I've had outside of Germany. And like it's dangerous because I'll go and I'm like, I'm just gonna have a beer, and then like 3 beers in and I'm just tanked. Because they're, the big old Steins.
High yield, Germans.
I like to hear
so
you
good.
get hammered. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
So,
well, it's like Vienna lagers and Hefs and
earlier you had made a point about what did you called some beer a particular name, and it was because it was like just like a hammerable
like
beer.
crushable. Yeah.
Crushable. That was the word you used. When you're in your crushable phase, what are you drinking on?
Man, I'll do like a red ale. I'll do like
what, like Red Dog?
Again, like I'll do, huh?
Red Dog. Can you find Red Dog anymore?
No, like a red ale.
Killian's?
I mean, like I'll do something like even like with this, like this drum roll, like this hazy pale. Like it's a hazy pale ale, but it's not an IPA. It's not overly hopped, so it's like it's kind of light and fruity, but it's not like overly heavy on the hops. So, but like every now and then, it depends on the time of year. Like sometimes I want a porter, sometimes I want a stout, sometimes I want to, like we have a Domingo, we have a mimosa sour, which is fucking delicious.
I saw that.
It tastes just like.
It was at the liquor store I go to down the street from my house, and they had
highly recommend.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous about it, so I went with the 85. But I definitely saw it. It was up in the top left corner, and I'd never seen it before. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that's for me. It's like a summer fun beer, or what?
Yeah. So the Dominga, it literally tastes just like a mimosa. Like it's a sour beer, but we put a shit ton of like Mexican orange and calamasi and lemon in it. So it's like, it literally tastes just like a mimosa. It's delicious.
So it's not like gross sour beer.
Awesome. So we gotta do our reviews.
Yep, we'll go in the same order. I'll kick it off. Like once again, I was drinking the New Belgium Triple, 8.5% ABV. It's recommended to be served at between 48 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna be honest. Like I've been drinking a lot of IPAs lately, so like my palate was like expecting that flavor profile, and when I took a sip of the Belgium, like it was super like complex. So there's a lot going on. And granted, this was last night. Went to bed, went to work, and all I could think about was drinking the triple all day. I was like, I kind of want to get back at it. It had a very like, it took me back to like on deployments, being in Europe, grabbing European beers, and it like took me right back. And not a coincidence because Anne works at New Belgium that I'm giving this 5 out of 5 bottle caps. New Belgium.
Very nice.
Andy?
Yeah, so I'm drinking the Summer Bliss from New Belgium. And
Do you want the can of again? It's
what's
like
that?
Miami Vice.
Yeah, kind of.
Twisted. Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, it's nice. It's a great summertime feel, with the wheat and mango flavors and everything going on there. And I was really kind of tempted almost, but not to be too much of like a kiss ass or anything else. Like when you said to bring a beer for the summer barbecue, I was like, I feel like this could